The massive crystal chamber on Nexus Prime buzzed with alien voices. Ambassador Dong Min stood alone in the center, surrounded by creatures that looked like nightmares from human movies. Some had 6 arms, others breathed through gills on their necks. A few floated in tanks filled with purple liquid. 846 different alien species filled the chamber. All of them stared at the single human representative with eyes that showed no kindness. Today was the day they would decide humanity's fate. Council Prime Relac rose from the highest platform. The insect-like being stood 12 feet tall, with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected the chamber's light. When it spoke, its voice echoed through translation devices that turned alien clicks into human words. The Galactic Council has reached a decision, Relac announced. The human species has shown dangerous aggression in 17 separate incidents over the past 2 years. Your people attack first and ask questions later. You use violence where diplomacy should rule. Dong Min kept his face blank, but inside he wanted to laugh. The incidents Relac mentioned were all cases where human colonies had defended themselves against pirates and raiders. Apparently, the Council thought humans should have politely asked the attackers to stop shooting at them. The Council has voted, Relac continued. The vote was unanimous. All 846 species agree that humanity poses a threat to galactic peace. A holographic display showed the voting results. Every single species had voted the same way. Not one voice had spoken for humanity. Therefore, Relac said, we offer humanity a choice. You may surrender all military weapons and ships. You will accept permanent council oversight of your colonies. Your species will be monitored and controlled to prevent future violence. In return, you will be allowed to live under our protection. The chamber fell silent. Dong Min could feel hundreds of alien eyes watching him. Some species had tentacles instead of faces, but he could still sense their satisfaction. They thought they had cornered the dangerous humans. And if we refuse? Dong Min asked. Relac's mandibles clicked together in what might have been a smile. Then the combined fleets of 846 civilizations will destroy every human world. Your species will be extinct within 1 year. The threat hung in the air like poison. Never in galactic history had so many species united against one enemy. The human military had maybe 5,000 ships. The Council could field 50,000 without breaking a sweat. You have 72 hours to respond, Relac said. Use this time wisely. Think of your families. Think of your children. Surrender is the only path to survival. Dong Min bowed politely. I will deliver your message to Earth immediately. He turned and walked toward the chamber's exit. Behind him, alien voices began chattering in excitement. They were already planning how to divide up human space once the surrender came through. But if they had looked more carefully at the human ambassador's face, they might have noticed something strange. Dong Min's lips were curved in a very slight smile. 2 hours later, Earth's war room received the transmission. Admiral Hyunwoo sat at the head of a long table deep beneath Seoul Defense Command. The room had been carved out of solid rock and could survive a direct nuclear hit. Around the table sat Earth's military leaders. General So-young commanded the ground forces. Fleet Commander Jin-ho controlled the Space Navy. Intelligence Director Yoon-ji knew more about alien species than anyone else on Earth. These 4 people held humanity's future in their hands. The holographic display showed Dong Min's face as he delivered the Council's ultimatum. His voice was calm and professional, but everyone in the room could see the anger in his eyes. So they want us to surrender everything, Jin-ho said when the message ended. Give up our weapons, accept their control, and hope they keep their word about letting us live. 846 species, So-young muttered. That's not a war. That's a massacre waiting to happen. Yoon-ji pulled up tactical displays showing Council military strength. The numbers were frightening. Their smallest member species has more ships than our entire fleet. If they attack together, we'll be outnumbered 10-1. Admiral Hyunwoo stared at the data for a long moment. Then something unexpected happened. He started to chuckle. Sir? So-young asked. The chuckle became a laugh. Soon Hyunwoo was holding his sides, tears running down his cheeks. They think we're going to surrender. General So-young caught the humor first. Her lips twitched, then she started grinning. Fleet Commander Jin-ho followed, then Yoon-ji. Within minutes, the most serious room on Earth was filled with human laughter. They have no idea who they're dealing with, Hyunwoo gasped between laughs. These aliens think we're just another species they can bully into submission. Have they seen our history books? Jin-ho asked, wiping his eyes. Humans don't surrender. We've never surrendered. Not when we were outnumbered, not when we were outgunned, not when everyone said we couldn't win. So Young nodded. My grandmother fought in the resource wars. 50 million Chinese troops against 5 million defenders. Everyone said Seoul would fall in a week. The siege lasted 3 years and we never gave up. The Spartans at Thermopylae, Yunji added. 300 men against an army of hundreds of thousands. They knew they would die, but they fought anyway. The Warsaw Ghetto, Hyunwoo said quietly. Jews with pistols against Nazi tanks. They had no chance of winning, but they fought because some things are worth dying for. The laughter had stopped, but the smiles remained. These were not the smiles of people planning to give up. These were the smiles of predators who had just found new prey. Send a message back to Ambassador Dongmin, Hyunwoo ordered. Tell him to give the council our answer. 6 hours later, Dongmin stood before the council chamber again. The aliens looked confident and relaxed. Many had already started discussing how to split up human territory. Council Prime Relac leaned forward. You have returned quickly. Has your species seen wisdom? Will you accept our generous offer of protection? Dongmin's smile grew wider. I have humanity's answer to your ultimatum. Excellent, Relac said. I assume you bring word of your surrender. Not exactly. Dongmin's voice carried to every corner of the massive chamber. Humanity respectfully declines your generous offer. We've decided we'll take our chances. The silence that followed was absolute. In 3,000 years of galactic history, no species had ever refused a unanimous council ultimatum. It simply didn't happen. Relac's compound eyes focused on the human. You cannot be serious. You face extinction. Maybe, Dongmin said. But if we're going to die, we'll die fighting. That's what humans do. He turned to leave, then stopped and looked back. Oh, and Council Prime, you might want to warn your fleets. They're about to learn why humans smile when someone threatens them. The chamber erupted in alien voices as Dongmin walked away. Behind him, 846 species began preparing. For a war they thought would last a few weeks. They had no idea they were about to discover what happened when someone poked the most dangerous predator in the galaxy. 3 months had passed since humanity refused to surrender. Across the galaxy, the largest military force in history was gathering. Council propaganda broadcasts filled every channel, calling humans savage warmongers who threatened galactic peace. But something strange was happening in human space. While the aliens prepared for traditional warfare, humans were doing something completely different. Dr. Mi Young stood in her laboratory on Luna Station, surrounded by holographic displays showing alien biology data. As Earth's top xenobiologist, she had spent years studying the species that now wanted to destroy humanity. What she had discovered would change everything. Admiral, she said into her communicator, you need to see this immediately. Admiral Hyunwoo arrived 30 minutes later with his senior staff. General So Young, Fleet Commander Jin Ho, and Intelligence Director Yoonji gathered around Mi Young's main display. I've been analyzing our enemies, Mi Young began, all 846 species. Their biology, their homeworlds, their evolution. The results are fascinating. She activated the hologram. Alien worlds appeared in the air above them, showing landscapes that looked nothing like Earth. Look at these gravity readings. Mi Young pointed to the data. The strongest gravity on any council world is 0.7 Earth standard. Most are around 0.4. Their people evolved on worlds where jumping 10 feet in the air was normal. Jinho frowned. What does that mean for us? It means our soldiers can carry twice as much equipment and fight twice as long as any alien warrior. What feels normal to us would crush their bones. The next display showed atmospheric data. Their air is thinner too. Most council species breathe gases that would be toxic to us, but they need much less oxygen. A human can fight for hours in conditions that would leave them gasping for breath. But the most important discovery was yet to come. Mi Young brought up evolutionary charts showing how each species had developed. This is the crucial part, she said. Every single council species evolved as either herbivores or ambush predators. The herbivores developed complex social structures to avoid conflict. The predators evolved for quick kills to save energy. She paused to let that sink in. Humans are the only species in the galaxy that evolved as persistence hunters. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Humans were the descendants of apes that had chased prey across African savannas until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. No other species in the galaxy had that kind of stamina. So they can't keep up with us? So Young asked. It's worse than that, Mi Young replied. The concept of acceptable losses is completely foreign to them. Their species survived by avoiding casualties at all costs. The idea of trading lives for tactical advantage doesn't exist in their thinking. Admiral Hyun-woo smiled grimly. What about their technology? Superior to ours in most ways, Mi-young admitted. But they build everything for their biology, not ours. Their ships have artificial gravity systems set to 0.4 Earth standard. Their weapons are designed for beings with slower reflexes. Their armor won't fit human proportions. 3,000 kilometers away, Chief Engineer Tae-hyun was putting this information to good use. The orbital shipyards around Earth worked day and night, but they weren't building the massive dreadnoughts most species used for warfare. Instead, human factories produced thousands of small, fast ships. The new Mosquito-class fighters were barely 50 meters long, built for speed and maneuverability rather than heavy armor. Captain Sung-ho climbed into the cockpit of the first prototype. The cramped space would be torture for most aliens. But humans had evolved to endure discomfort. The flight controls were designed for Earth-standard gravity and human reflexes. "Control, this is Mosquito 1, Sung-ho radioed. Beginning test flight." The little ship shot away from the shipyard like a bullet. Sung-ho pushed the engines to maximum power and felt the G-forces slam him back into his seat. The acceleration would have killed most alien pilots instantly. But humans had trained for centuries in machines that pushed their bodies to the limit. He threw the ship into a series of maneuvers that would be impossible for any council species. Sudden turns that pulled 8 Gs, spinning rolls that would disorient creatures with different inner ear structures, emergency stops that would crush aliens not built for Earth gravity. "Beautiful," he whispered. "They'll never see us coming." Back on Earth, Dr. Yoon Seo was making her own discoveries. The military psychologist had access to intercepted council communications, and what she found explained a lot about their ultimatum. "They're absolutely terrified of taking casualties," she reported to the Defense Council. "I've analyzed communication patterns from their last 12 conflicts. The side that lost the fewest soldiers always won, regardless of tactical objectives." She brought up battle records from council wars. "Look at this engagement between the Reladians and the Keth Coalition. 47 ships lost total over 3 years of fighting. They consider that a major catastrophe." Admiral Hyun-woo studied the data. Human history was full of single battles that cost more lives than the entire council had lost in centuries. They negotiate surrender the moment casualties hit what they consider unacceptable levels, Yoon Seo continued. "For most species, that's around 2% losses." 2%? General So-young looked shocked. "Human military doctrine accepts up to 30% casualties for critical objectives. That's why they're so confident about the ultimatum," Yoon Seo explained. "They think we'll behave like they do. Take a few losses, realize we can't win, and surrender to save lives." Fleet Commander Jin-ho was already seeing the tactical possibilities. "So if we can inflict serious casualties early in the fighting, their alliance will collapse," Yoon Seo nodded. "Most species will withdraw rather than accept what they consider massive losses." The final piece of the puzzle came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Cha was a junior officer assigned to study council military formations. What she discovered was almost too good to believe. "They fight like it's a chess game," she reported. "Perfect formations, predictable movements, everything by the book. They've been using the same tactical doctrine for thousands of years because it minimizes casualties." She showed video recordings of council fleet exercises. The alien ships moved in precise geometric patterns, never breaking formation, always maintaining proper spacing for mutual defense. "It's beautiful," Cha said, "but completely predictable. Once you know the pattern, you know exactly where every ship will be at any given moment." Admiral Hyun-woo watched the alien formations and saw opportunity. Human military doctrine emphasized chaos and unpredictability. The aliens expected ordered battle between massive fleets. They had no concept of guerrilla warfare, hit-and-run tactics, or asymmetric strategy. "They're going to fight the kind of war they understand," he realized. "Formal engagements between equal forces with rules and honor and minimal casualties." "What kind of war are we going to fight?" Jin-ho asked. The admiral's smile was sharp as a blade. "A human war." Over the following weeks, human space became a hive of activity. Civilian ships were converted into fast attack craft. Mining stations became forward supply bases. Even merchant vessels received weapon upgrades and armor plating. But the most important changes were happening in the human military itself. Soldiers trained for combat in zero gravity, toxic atmospheres and crushing gravitational fields. Pilots practiced maneuvers that would kill alien crews. Marines learned to fight in conditions no council species could survive. Captain Bitna led her squadron through simulations of the coming battle. Her ships moved like a school of fish, flowing around obstacles, never holding formation for more than a few seconds. It was the opposite of everything the council considered proper warfare. Remember, she told her pilots, they'll expect us to meet them head-on in honorable combat. Instead, we're going to hit them from every direction at once, break their formations, and turn their orderly battle into a free-for-all. The psychological preparation was just as important. Dr. Yoon Seo worked with military units to prepare them for fighting outnumbered, but instead of focusing on survival, she emphasized aggression. The aliens think they're fighting a defensive war, she explained to a group of fighter pilots. They believe they're protecting the galaxy from dangerous humans. But we know the truth. We're not the aggressors here. We're the ones fighting for our right to exist. As the council fleets gathered at the edge of human space, humanity made its final preparations. The odds were still impossible. 50,000 alien ships against 5,000 human vessels. But the humans weren't planning to fight the aliens' war. Fleet Commander Jin Ho stood on the bridge of the flagship Indomitable, watching sensor readings of the massive council armada. Any sane military commander would surrender immediately. Instead, he turned to his communications officer. Send a message to all ships. Tell them it's time to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten a human's family. Across human space, 5,000 ships prepared for battle. Their crews were calm, focused, and completely confident. They were about to fight the largest military force in galactic history, and they couldn't wait to get started. The Council Armada was the most beautiful and terrible sight in galactic history. 50,000 ships arranged in perfect formation, stretching across space like a metal constellation. Each vessel gleamed with the advanced technology of civilizations that had ruled the stars for millennia. Admiral Hyun Woo watched them approach from the bridge of the human flagship Indomitable. His fleet looked pathetic by comparison. 5,000 ships scattered across space in loose groups that made no tactical sense to alien minds. Magnificent, breathed Fleet Commander Jin Ho, staring at the enemy formation. It must have taken them months to organize something that precise. And that, Hyun Woo replied, is exactly why we're going to win. The council fleet approached with the stately dignity of a formal parade. Their formation was a work of art, geometric perfection that had been refined over thousands of years of galactic warfare. Every ship knew its place. Every captain understood his role in the grand design. Council Prime Relac commanded from the massive flagship Eternal Harmony, a vessel 2 kilometers long and bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Around him, his bridge crew monitored the advancing human fleet with professional interest. Their formation is completely chaotic, reported his tactical officer, a spider-like being with 8 eyes. They show no understanding of proper military doctrine. Desperate animals. Relac clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. This will be over quickly. Signal all ships to prepare for standard engagement protocols. The alien fleet began its final approach. Weapons powered up according to regulations that had governed galactic warfare for 3,000 years. They would close to optimal firing range, exchange volleys with military precision, and accept the humans' surrender when casualties reached acceptable levels. Captain Sung-ho sat in the cramped cockpit of his Mosquito fighter, one of 3,000 similar craft hidden among the human fleet. His ship was so small that alien sensors barely registered it as a threat. All Mosquito squadrons, this is Control, came the voice from Indomitable. You are cleared for pattern chaos. Repeat, pattern chaos is authorized. Sung-ho's grin was savage. Pattern chaos was a human invention that would have horrified any alien military commander. Instead of maintaining formation and fighting as a unit, every human ship would attack independently, using speed and unpredictability to create maximum confusion. Mosquito 7 ready, he radioed. Let's show these bugs how humans fight. The battle began exactly as the Council expected. Their massive ships opened fire at maximum range, sending streams of energy across the void toward the human fleet. It was a spectacular light show that followed all the proper rules of civilized warfare. The humans didn't follow the rules. Instead of responding with their own long-range barrage, the human ships suddenly scattered like startled birds. Tiny fighters peeled away from the main fleet and accelerated to speeds that should have killed their pilots. Larger ships dove toward the alien formation at angles that made no tactical sense. "What are they doing?" demanded Relax's tactical officer. "This isn't proper battle doctrine." On his screens, the orderly engagement he expected was dissolving into chaos. Human fighters moved like angry wasps, darting between the massive council ships at velocities that defied belief. Their acceleration profiles showed G-forces that would liquefy most alien species. Captain Shung Ho led his squadron straight into the heart of the alien formation. His fighter pulled 12 Gs in a spiraling attack run that would have crushed any council pilot. Around him, alien point defense systems tried to track targets moving too fast and maneuvering too aggressively for their programming. Instead of attacking weapons or engines like civilized warriors, the humans targeted life support systems. Shung Ho's missiles punched through the hull of a council cruiser and exploded inside the crew quarters. The ship didn't die quickly in a spectacular explosion. It suffocated slowly as atmosphere bled into space. "Barbarians," screamed the alien captain as his crew died around him. "This violates every law of warfare." But the humans weren't finished. Lieutenant Commander Acha demonstrated the next phase of human tactical doctrine. Her torpedo spread didn't target the council flagship's weapons or shields. Instead, she aimed for the artificial gravity generators that kept the alien crew functional. The massive vessel Eternal Harmony began to spin wildly as its gravity systems failed. The crew, evolved on a low-gravity world, was thrown against bulkheads with bone-crushing force. Within minutes, the pride of the Council fleet was helpless, its crew unable to fight or flee. Captain Bitna showed the aliens what human ships were really designed for. Her destroyer Relentless had been built not for head-to-head combat, but for submarine-style warfare. She slipped past the alien formation's shields using stealth technology and struck from inside their defensive perimeter. Her targets were the massive supply ships that kept the Council fleet operational. Without the protection of escort vessels, these lumbering giants were helpless against human attack craft. Bitna's ship moved through them like a shark through a school of fish, leaving burning wreckage in her wake. The aliens were horrified to discover that humans didn't fight like civilized beings. When Council doctrine called for withdrawal to regroup, human ships pressed their attacks even harder. When alien vessels tried to surrender, human fighters ignored the white flags and kept shooting. Captain Hoonki became a legend that day. His cruiser Soul's Pride took critical damage from 3 Council dreadnoughts, but instead of retreating or surrendering, he did something that shocked both fleets. "This is Soul's Pride to all human vessels," his voice crackled over the radio. "We're going critical. Anyone who wants to live should clear the area." Then he turned his crippled ship toward the densest concentration of alien vessels and pushed his reactor into overload. "For humanity," were his last words. Soul's Pride exploded like a miniature star, taking 17 Council ships with her. The blast was visible from the outer edge of the solar system, a beacon of human determination that would be remembered for centuries. The psychological effect on the alien fleet was devastating. Creatures that had evolved to avoid casualties at all costs watched in horror as humans deliberately sacrificed themselves for tactical advantage. It was behavior so alien that many Council species couldn't process what they were seeing. Commander Subin led a boarding action against the Council. Command ship Wisdom of Ages. Her team of 12 human Marines used powered armor designed for Earth. Gravity and human reflexes. They moved through the alien ship's corridors like demons, faster and stronger than anything the defenders had ever faced. The ship's security force numbered over 500 troops from a dozen different species. They were trained professionals with excellent equipment and superior numbers. But they had never fought an enemy that considered dying for victory an acceptable trade-off. Subin's Marines carved through them like a hot knife through butter. Human tactics emphasized aggression over caution, speed over safety. Where alien troops would establish defensive positions and call for backup, humans simply charged forward, accepting casualties in exchange for momentum. Within 2 hours of beginning the battle, the elegant Council formation had collapsed into panic. Ships fled in all directions as human fighters pursued them like wolves chasing scattered sheep. The aliens' superior technology meant nothing when they couldn't bring it to bear in organized fashion. Admiral Hyunwoo watched the destruction from his command bridge. Reports flooded in from across the battle zone. Council ships burning, alien formations broken, Enemy crews abandoning their posts in terror. Casualty report, he ordered. We've lost 437 ships, reported his aide. Estimated crew losses at 15,000. The numbers would have horrified any alien commander. By Council standards, those casualties represented a catastrophic defeat that would require immediate surrender. But Admiral Hyunwoo just nodded calmly. Acceptable, he said. What about the aliens? Enemy losses exceed 3,000 ships. Their formation has completely collapsed. Long-range sensors show multiple fleets in full retreat. Across the communication channels, human voices reported victory after victory. But they weren't celebrating. They were already planning their next moves. Where alien species would pause to mourn their losses and negotiate a ceasefire, humans saw opportunity to press their advantage. Council Prime Rilak sat in the ruins of his command bridge, surrounded by the bodies of his crew. His beautiful fleet, the pride of galactic civilization, had been shattered by a force barely 1/10 its size. It was impossible, unprecedented, and absolutely terrifying. Signal all ships, he whispered to his surviving communications officer. General retreat. Fall back to Nexus Prime. But even as the Council fleet fled, human ships continued their pursuit. They didn't stop to secure territory or tend to their wounded. Like the persistence hunters their ancestors had been, they simply kept coming, wearing down their prey through relentless pressure. As the alien formations broke apart and scattered across space, Admiral Hyunwoo opened a communication channel that reached every ship in both fleets. This is Admiral Hyunwoo of the Earth Defense Force. His voice carried across the void. To all Council ships currently fleeing the battlefield, this was just a warm-up. 6 months after the war began, Council Prime Rilak found himself in a position no galactic leader had ever faced. The mighty Galactic Council, which had maintained order for 3 millennia through strength and unity, was falling apart. Member species abandoned the Alliance daily, choosing to defend their homeworlds rather than continue fighting the humans. The Great Crystal Chamber on Nexus Prime, which had once held representatives from 847 species, now hosted barely 200. Empty seats stretched as far as the eye could see, a monument to the failure of galactic civilization's greatest institution. We must request a ceasefire, Admiral Keth 9 urged during an emergency session. His Relidian fleet had been shattered in 3 separate engagements with human forces. Our military losses are unsustainable. Impossible, snapped General Vex 12 of the Hive Collective. The Council does not negotiate from weakness. We have never surrendered to anyone. Then explain our situation. Keth 9's mandibles clicked angrily. Half our member species have withdrawn from the war. Human fleets have been spotted within 50 light-years of Nexus Prime itself. Our capital is under threat for the first time in galactic history. The argument that followed revealed how completely the human strategy had succeeded. Species that had been allies for centuries now blamed each other for military disasters. Ancient grievances resurfaced as the pressure of an impossible war tore apart diplomatic relationships that had seemed unbreakable. Council Prime Rilak watched the dissolution of his government with growing despair. In 6 months, humanity had accomplished what no enemy had managed in 3,000 years. They had broken the Council's unity and reduced the galaxy's greatest power to a squabbling collection of frightened civilizations. The final blow came when long-range sensors detected human fleets massing at the edge of the Nexus system. Admiral Hyunwoo was preparing for a direct assault on the Council's capital, and everyone knew that the remaining defenses couldn't stop him. Send a transmission to the human fleet, Rilak ordered with the weight of defeat in his voice. Request a meeting to discuss terms. The response came 12 hours later. Ambassador Dongmin would return to the Council chamber, but this time he wouldn't be coming alone. When the human delegation arrived, the change in dynamics was immediately obvious. Instead of one man standing alone before hundreds of hostile aliens, Ambassador Dongmin walked flanked by Admiral Hyunwoo and General So Young. They moved with the confident stride of conquerors, and every alien in the chamber knew it. Council Prime Rilak, Dongmin's voice carried clearly through the vast chamber. I understand you wish to discuss a ceasefire. Rilak's compound eyes focused on the human delegation. These were the representatives of a species that had done the impossible, defeated the combined might of galactic civilization. He had no choice but to treat them as equals. The Council recognizes humanity's Military capabilities, he said carefully. We are prepared to offer you full membership in the Council, with voting rights and territorial guarantees. In exchange, we ask that you end hostilities and withdraw your fleets from Council space. The offer would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. Full Council membership for humanity, with all the rights and privileges that entailed. It was everything the humans could have asked for when this war began. Admiral Hyunwoo's smile was cold as space itself. I think there's been a misunderstanding. He stepped forward and the aliens instinctively recoiled from the human predator in their midst. You seem to think we're here to join your council. We're not. We're here to explain how things are going to work from now on. The chamber fell silent except for the soft sounds of alien breathing and the hum of environmental systems. Rilak felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. What do you mean? He asked. Intelligence Director Yoonji activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. It showed the current state of the galaxy. Human fleets positioned throughout Council space. Member species withdrawing from the Alliance. Entire sectors in open revolt against Council authority. Your government is finished, she said matter-of-factly. Half your member species have already left the Council. The other half are too frightened to fight effectively. You have no unified military, no coherent strategy, and no way to regain control. General So-young picked up the explanation. For 3,000 years you've maintained order through fear and intimidation. Smaller species obeyed because they were afraid of what would happen if they didn't. But now they've seen that the Council can be defeated. That fear is gone forever. The alien representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They had all received reports from their homeworlds. Populations celebrating human victories. Governments questioning why they had ever joined the Council in the first place. Military leaders asking why they should fight for an alliance that couldn't protect them. So what do you propose? Rilak asked, dreading the answer. Ambassador Dongmin smiled, but it wasn't the cold expression his military colleagues wore. This was warmer, more hopeful. We propose giving every species in the galaxy something they've never had before. A choice. The holographic display changed, showing a new map of galactic civilization. Instead of the unified Council territory that had existed for millennia, it showed hundreds of independent systems and voluntary associations. The new rules are simple, Dongmin explained. Every species gets to choose their own government, their own way of life, their own destiny. No more unanimous votes to bully smaller civilizations. No more collective punishment for defending yourselves. No more forced membership in organizations you never wanted to join. Dr. Mi-young stepped forward with scientific data that supported the human position. Our analysis shows that forced unity creates instability. The most prosperous and peaceful regions in galactic history were those where different species cooperated voluntarily, not because they were compelled to. What about trade? Asked a representative from the Merchant Coalition. What about defense against external threats? The Council provided structure and security. Fleet Commander Jin Ho answered that question. Voluntary cooperation is stronger than forced compliance. Species that choose to work together because they benefit from it are more reliable allies than those who obey, because they're afraid. He gestured to the human fleet data displayed in the hologram. Earth didn't defeat the Council because we're stronger than you. We won because we were fighting for something we believed in. The right to exist as a free species. Forced allies fight because they have to. Free allies fight because they want to. The implications were staggering. What the humans proposed wasn't just military victory. It was the complete restructuring of galactic civilization. The end of the Council system that had governed the galaxy for 3 millennia. And if species choose to remain independent? Rilak asked. What prevents stronger civilizations from conquering weaker ones without Council protection? Admiral Hyunwoo's smile returned, sharp and predatory. We do. The simple statement carried tremendous weight. Humanity had proven they could defeat any force in the galaxy. Now they were offering to use that strength to protect others rather than conquer them. We're not interested in ruling the galaxy, General So-young explained. We just want to make sure that every species has the same choice we demanded, the right to determine their own fate without external interference. Captain Seung-ho, who had earned fame as one of humanity's greatest fighter pilots, spoke from personal experience. I've fought in 12 battles over the past 6 months. Every time we faced aliens who were there because they had to be, not because they wanted to be. That's why we won. Free beings fight harder than slaves. Dr. Yoon Seo presented the psychological analysis that had guided human strategy from the beginning. The council system was based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how societies function. You assumed that unity could be imposed through fear and maintained through force. But real unity comes from shared values and common goals, not from threats. As the human delegation outlined their vision for the galaxy's future, something remarkable began to happen in the council chamber. Alien representatives who had spent centuries obeying orders from more powerful species began to imagine what true freedom might look like. The Arachnid Confederacy representative raised one of her 8 arms. What guarantees do we have that humanity won't simply replace the Council as the galaxy's ruler? It was Admiral Hyunwoo who answered, and his response surprised everyone in the chamber. Because we've been where you are. For most of human history, we lived under the rule of kings and emperors who claimed they knew what was best for us. We fought wars to get rid of them, and we're not about to become them ourselves. He paused, looking around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces. The only guarantee we can offer is our own history. We've never conquered another species for their own good. We've never claimed that slavery was freedom or that oppression was protection, and we're not going to start now. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. The council system was dead, killed by its own contradictions and humanity's refusal to accept submission. What remained was to decide what would replace it. News of humanity's victory at Sol spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. For the first time in recorded history, someone had defeated the mighty Galactic Council in open battle. The impossible had become reality, and the galaxy would never be the same. On 1,000 worlds, alien civilians huddled around news broadcasts, trying to understand how this could have happened. The humans were supposed to be primitive warmongers, easily crushed by superior council forces. Instead, they had shattered the largest fleet in galactic history. Intelligence Director Yoon-ji monitored these broadcasts from her command center on Luna. The psychological warfare was working even better than expected. Fear was spreading through council space like a virus, infecting every species with doubt about their supposedly invincible military. "Admiral," she reported, "we're seeing panic buying on 47 council worlds. Their stock markets are crashing. 3 member species have already recalled their fleets to defend their home systems." Admiral Hyun-woo studied the intelligence reports with satisfaction. The Council's greatest strength had always been unity. Hundreds of species working together against any threat. But unity required trust, and trust was a fragile thing. Time for Phase 2, he decided. Send the signal to all hunter groups. Across human space, small fleets of ships received the coded message. These weren't the massive battle groups that aliens expected. Instead, humanity deployed wolf packs, fast, deadly squadrons designed to strike without warning and disappear before reinforcements could arrive. Captain Bitna commanded Hunter Group 7, 50 ships selected for speed and stealth rather than raw firepower. Her target was the Kepler 442 system, home to the Council's largest shipyard complex. Intelligence suggested it was defended by over 300 alien vessels. "Remember the plan," she told her captains over secure radio. "We hit fast, do as much damage as possible, and get out before they know what happened. This isn't about holding ground, it's about showing them that nowhere is safe." Her fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, too far away for immediate detection. The shipyards orbited the system's 4th planet. Massive construction facilities that had been building council ships for over 2,000 years. The defending fleet was arranged in a perfect defensive formation around the shipyards. Admiral Keth 9 of the Relidian Navy had studied the Battle of Sol extensively. He wouldn't be caught off guard by human tactics. Sensors detect 50 human vessels at the edge of the system, his tactical officer reported. They appear to be maintaining long-range position. "Exactly what I expected." Keth 9 clicked his mandibles smugly. "They want to draw us out of formation. All ships maintain defensive positions. We will not repeat the mistakes made at Sol." What he didn't know was that Bitna's 50 ships were just a distraction. While his sensors tracked the obvious targets, 300 human fighters had been drifting toward the shipyards for the past 6 hours, powered down and invisible to alien detection systems. Lieutenant Jae Won led the first wave of fighters. His Mosquito-class ship had been upgraded with mining charges normally used to break up asteroids. Today those charges would serve a different purpose. "All fighters, this is Stinger 1, he radioed. Target the construction bays. We want those facilities completely destroyed. The human fighters activated their engines simultaneously, accelerating from 0 to maximum velocity in seconds. By the time alien sensors detected the new contacts, it was already too late. Jaewon's ship screamed toward the nearest construction bay at speeds that would have killed any alien pilot. He released his mining charges at point-blank range, then pulled away in a turn that generated 15 Gs of acceleration. The explosions that followed were spectacular. 2 millennia of accumulated construction materials, metal beams, hull plating, exotic alloys, became deadly shrapnel that tore through the shipyard complex like bullets through paper. Admiral Keth 9 watched in horror as his supposedly impregnable defenses crumbled. How did they get so close without being detected? But there was no time for analysis. More human fighters were already attacking the second wave of targets, the fuel storage facilities that kept the entire complex operational. Captain Bitna's main fleet had also begun its assault, using the chaos to punch through his defensive formation. Within 3 hours, the pride of Council shipbuilding was a spreading cloud of radioactive debris. Bitna's fleet escaped with minimal losses, leaving behind destruction that would take decades to repair. Similar attacks erupted across Council space. Commander Subin led a raid on the intelligence center at Vega, stealing strategic data while the facility's defenders were still figuring out how humans had penetrated their security. Major Doyan assaulted the fortress world of Proxima Centauri B, using tactics that ignored casualty rates in favor of speed and shock value. The psychological impact was devastating. Council military doctrine assumed that defending forces would have time to organize, call for reinforcements, and establish proper defensive positions. Human attacks gave them none of these luxuries. Dr. Yoon Seo monitored alien communications and watched their military leadership crack under pressure. Species that had been allies for centuries began blaming each other for the defeats. Old grudges resurfaced as panic spread through the Council hierarchy. The Zephyrians are withdrawing their fleet from the Beta sector, she reported. They claim they need to defend their home worlds from human attack. The Crystalline Collective is demanding to know why their ships took such heavy losses at Kepler. Admiral Hyun-woo smiled as he read the reports. The Council's unity was fracturing exactly as planned. Fear was a powerful weapon, and humans had learned to use it with surgical precision. But the aliens were learning too. Council Prime Rylak convened an emergency session to address the crisis. Military advisors from dozens of species struggled to understand human tactics and develop countermeasures. They don't fight like rational beings, reported General Vex 12 of the Hive Collective. Our projections assume that enemy forces will prioritize survival and minimize casualties. Human behavior contradicts these assumptions. They accept losses that would destroy the morale of any civilized species, added Admiral Zeph Prime of the Wind Dancers. How do we fight an enemy that welcomes death in battle? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Quinn 7 was a xenopsychologist who had studied human behavior for decades. Her report would change how the Council viewed their enemy. Humans evolved on a death world, she explained to the assembled military leaders. Their planet tried to kill them for millions of years. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, climate changes that would have wiped out any other species. They survived by becoming the most dangerous predators their world had ever seen. She activated a holographic display showing Earth's evolutionary history. Every other species in the galaxy evolved to avoid conflict and minimize casualties. Humans evolved to embrace conflict and use it as a tool for survival. The alien military leaders stared at images of human ancestors hunting mammoth with spears, fighting wars with sword and shield, flying aircraft that should have been impossible to control. It was a history written in blood and determination. They're not fighting to conquer territory, Dr. Quinn 7 continued. They're fighting for the right to exist as a free species. That's why they accept casualties we consider catastrophic. To them, death in battle is preferable to life in chains. Council Prime Rylak absorbed this information with growing dread. How do we negotiate with such creatures? You don't, Dr. Quinn 7 replied bluntly. Their entire history is full of groups that fought hopeless battles rather than surrender. The Spartans at Thermopylae, the defenders of the Alamo, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. They have a cultural tradition of preferring death to submission. Meanwhile, human forces continued their relentless advance. Captain Sung-ho led his fighter squadron in a series of hit-and-run attacks that kept entire council fleets off balance. His pilots had mastered the art of appearing without warning, striking vital targets, and vanishing before the enemy could respond. The aliens tried to adapt their tactics, but they were fighting an enemy that rewrote the rules of warfare with every engagement. Where council forces expected predictable formations and honorable combat, humans brought chaos and unpredictability. Lieutenant Commander Cha demonstrated this during the Battle of Wolf 359. Her small task force encountered a council fleet 3 times its size, heavily fortified and ready for traditional combat. Instead of retreating or calling for reinforcements, she ordered her ships to ram the enemy formation at maximum velocity. The alien commander watched in disbelief as human vessels deliberately crashed into his ships, trading their own lives for tactical advantage. It was behavior so alien that his species literally had no word for it. By the end of the 4th month, the situation was becoming clear to anyone who understood military strategy. The mighty Galactic Council, masters of the galaxy for 3 millennia, was losing a war to a single species barely 2 decades removed from their home planet. Major Doyon stood in the ruins of yet another council facility, this one a major military academy that had trained alien officers for over 1,000 years.